Okay, so this is a bit of a new idea, and I'm working out how to do this, so there will be pauses as I think about points I've noted down. Just hum amongst yourselves while I do a little bit of thinking. Also, ignore the sketch, or at least don't put too much attention or focus on it. It's just something to occupy the background, and I spent a short amount of time throwing together a bit of a rough collage from dreams and past lives and scenes I liked, just so that I could use something that I didn't have any copyright problems with, because it was all mine. So this week, early on we had a heat wave. We're moving into summer here in the southern hemisphere, but today we're back into the colder, wetter, windier weather that I love and that I came back to Victoria for. I'm actually looking forward to the end of year break, as it's been a wearing couple of years. We've had family illnesses, work issues and pressures, and the pandemic on top of all of that. In addition, I'm getting older. I'm finding that I'm slower physically. I take longer to recover. I still am expected to try and work at the same pace at work. So it's just getting a little bit difficult, and I'm looking forward to having a little bit of a break. By the way, one of the things that helps me is exercising, and I strongly prefer doing that in my own time. I find the idea of trying to incorporate exercise into the time spent at work almost like a form of modern slavery. I think it's losing the boundaries between work and personal time, personal life, and I think it's not healthy at all. In terms of managing workload, I may cut the Battle of the World posts back to fortnightly, possibly alternating with these additional short posts. And on issues of managing time and energy, I've recently decided that trying to build a tiny home or get back into sailing would be wonderful, but it would take too much time and energy, and I'd rather put that into what's of most importance to me, which at the moment is family and this work. If circumstances change, I'll revisit that, and for circumstances to change as far as the tiny home goes, those people in governments and councils who are struggling with FBU, look it up in my glossary, will need to change their attitudes. So, coming back to this work, the psychic work that I work on, I've started outlining the course on how I do the psychic weather reports. That'll go up as a regular series after the Battle of World series is completed, but that's going to be continuing for at least another year, I suspect. Also this week, I've been doing some reading. Actually, I also do arithmetic at work, and I've also done some writing this week, so I've been doing my reading, writing, and arithmetic. My kindergarten teachers would be proud. More seriously, from my reading this week, I think some books on extraterrestrials and contact get a little bit too US focused. There's some really good stuff about Billy Meyer, for example, in Europe. There's also some really good historical stuff on contact with Native Americans from the US, which is something that I think people need to know more about. And they also need to know more about the CE5 protocols that were developed by Stephen Greer and the levels of consciousness that he teaches about. By the way, I don't refer to Stephen Greer as a doctor in this context, because his doctor is in the context of medical doctor, which is not relevant to this. Another matter that's cropped up with some of the reading about extraterrestrial contact is that there's an opinion that they are pushing increased awareness of survival after death, and anyone who's considering that must look up Victor and Wendy Zammit online. Wendy has a series of online conferences and posts on YouTube, which are excellent. Victor's got a great book, and the two of them put out a regular weekly email service, which is very helpful. The other issues about extraterrestrial contact is, I wonder how much some of the trauma is something as simple as a bit like modern medical doctors having terrible bedside manners. They give me the impression that where tests are being done, the ETs involved in those sort of abductions seem to be very casual, and to them it's almost like they're a vet and we're the animal. And I wonder if that's what's causing the trauma. And it is trauma that such contact leaves with us. But looking at the changes that have happened with Whitley Strieber over the decades, I suspect that it may well be that those initial contacts, and this is my understanding of what Mr. Strieber writes about, those initial contacts were not meant to be malicious, they were more clumsy. In addition, I mentioned FBU, flummoxed by the unfamiliar. I think that also is something that contributes to the trauma that some contactees find. Okay, the other thing about this, which I probably won't get into too much this week, is that the old debate about whether extraterrestrials are beneficial or harmful has cropped up in the reading that I've done. My experience is that the vast majority, 99% and more, are beneficial. There is a minority that are harmful, and if you want to understand some of that, look back into some of the old mythology, particularly the Indian mythology, which will give an explanation of what can happen when there is disagreement amongst powerful aliens. But overall, they're beneficial. Despite that, my opinion is that everybody involved with the CE5 and other extraterrestrial contact work should know about risks, and they should also know about the basics of psychic protection, non-physical health, strength and well-being, and the basics of clearing, dissolving negative units, how to get rid of them, which is something that I cover quite a bit in my main blog. The one really, really important part to do with that, which crops up with a question that I got asked this week, is you must, for example, if you're clearing a link, dissolve, clearing a negative link, I should say, or non-BPM to be accurate, you should dissolve the whole thing with positive energy, with BPM energy, or love if you prefer that. Don't cut it. If you cut it, the ends lash around and they'll latch onto something. Plus that tiny little bit of anger or hate that is often hiding in amongst the determination and forcefulness can create a counter chord or a karmic connection. And even though it's less significant, it's still there. The best thing to do when you're doing that sort of cutting of links or clearing of units is to be focused on letting go. The ideal is to be neutral, but we humans don't sit in neutrality very well, so focus on sending positive energy the best way you can. Visualizing colors or sounds or scents, but don't get into the crock of trying to be forgiving. That lets the wrongdoers off the hook, and they need to be better. Coming up next week, we've got the next CE5 contact meditation, and I'm going to see if I can get back to seeing the lights that I did on the first meditation I did. And I will leave that at that point for now. Thank you.